From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris here on a Wednesday. And, well, okay, just get ready to join in the conversation. If you're someone that is dealing with a legal issue, has a question about the law, you want to sue someone, this might be a good place to start. No, I don't mean suing me, but calling and asking questions to find out how I go about doing something like that, retaining a lawyer. And we've got some specific aspects of the law that the guest this morning specializes in, but he also has a very good general background to answer your questions. So this is Ask a Lawyer. As you see, Ask a Legal Expert this morning, 737-7587. And our guest, as always, is local attorney Andy Allman. Good morning, Andy.
Hey, how are you?
Good to see you.
Thanks.
It's always a pleasure having you on. And, where to start on all this, as I typically like to do, is I'm going to give Andy just a chance to refresh. We have new viewers every day. And your expertise, employment discrimination law, correct?
We do. We focus on employment discrimination, civil rights work.
Yeah.
Mainly represent employees who are in the workplace who've been discriminated against in some aspect of their employment because of maybe their age or a disability. They may have filed a workers' compensation claim, been injured on the job and been fired because of it or retaliated against in some manner. Individuals who have been the victim of sexual harassment, gender discrimination, race, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, those specific categories we tend to represent employees.
It's a broad aspect of the law, and so many of you maybe heard some of those things he just said, say, oh, I think that happened to me at my last job, or something along those lines. We should say, too, many of those cases you handle, they're handled in federal court because some of them deal with constitutional issues, don't they?
They do. Federal court is really where an employee, for the most part, would want to bring their case because of the issue of damages. For every federal law that protects an employee from discrimination and gives an employee damages for discrimination, there's almost always an analogous state law that will give that employee additional damages. And in the federal court, you can bring both the federal claim and the state claim, whereas if you just simply filed in state courts, you couldn't really bring your federal claims.
Okay, and this is real basic stuff, but someone's watching and they say, well, how is someone who just perhaps unjustly lost their job, unemployed with no income, how are they going to hire an excellent attorney like Andy Allman to represent them? It's not like I have thousands of dollars here to give you a retainer. So typically, how are you retained by your clients?
It really depends on the type of case it is. Some cases require the early retention of an expert witness, maybe an economist or a vocational expert, somebody along those lines. And in those instances, sometimes you do have to charge a retainer. For the most part, there's a contingency fee agreement, and that's kind of like the 1/3 of the overall recovery. But one thing to keep in mind in employment law, and employees need to understand this, is that one of the components of your damages in your federal law claims are all of your attorney's fees. And so the federal statutes make arrangements that a prevailing employee can petition the court so that the court can force the employer to pay the employee's attorney's fees for having to bring the action.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's the way it's covered. I just wanted to spell that out for folks. And as I said, that's Andy's specialty. He went to law school, okay? He's a bright guy, and we can take other calls in general about the law. You're good about doing that. And so, if you have other questions, basic legal questions, obviously if it's something real detailed like a state law or, getting into some other aspects that he doesn't have enough info on, you just let us know. Yeah. Otherwise, general legal questions, that's why it's Ask a Legal Expert. Andy's got it. I've got some other questions for you, but the lines are open, 737-7587 if you want to jump in. And let's go to Judy real quick, maybe before we take our first break. Judy, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, what can we do for you?
Yes, sir. I have a friend that her mom is in the nursing home, and she has given her granddaughter, who I think now is probably in her early 30s, her credit card to use for some school expenses. The grandmother signed off on some school loans, and now the creditors are calling the grandmother in the nursing home, and it's a sad situation. My friend is trying to handle the money for her mom, but the grandmother can't pay these bills, and I don't know who to recommend. Is there a legal aid, or is there someone that the grandmother can talk to?
And basically what it is are they threatening to come after her? And these credit card calls when you fall behind, they can get nasty and ugly. Granted, you have a debt, you should pay it, but she just needs to hang up on them if they're harassing her. What are they threatening her with?
I'm really not sure exact conversation, but I think that they're wanting their money. When they're an elderly woman, it's upsetting her, and the school loans. I mean, they're coming after her for the girl's school loans, and it doesn't appear that the girl is going to pay them. But I don't know who to recommend her to talk to. She obviously cannot afford much legal help.
Sure.
Her being in a nursing home and having very limited funds.
Okay, and I'm not sure that's necessarily a legal issue. Maybe you have some thoughts on what you would do or who you refer them to?
Well, each county has a legal aid society or a legal aid group, and those groups deal routinely with these types of issues when you've got elderly citizens who are being hounded by creditors or credit card agencies, things along those lines.
Right.
And they're very adept at the laws that are there to protect, especially senior citizens, from unfair creditor practices. So I would encourage her she can Google it, find the legal aid group or society in her county, call them up, let them know. There are actually groups out there, and she can look on Google for this, that are really focused on helping and protecting senior citizens who have these financial issues and who are being targeted by credit card companies or loan companies or what have you, and trying to be sure that the senior citizens' rights are not violated, but at the same time trying to work out some type of resolution as to getting the money paid back.
Yeah, sometimes they work it out. Maybe, I don't know if she's a member or knows someone who is, but AARP or something like that would have resources for this very thing. Because I'm telling you, Judy, there's no question in my mind, this happens to seniors sometimes. And the bottom line is the irresponsible kid is running up the credit card debt, and that's why my son is not going to even see a credit card. Because there's something about, it's just plastic, and you don't make the connection that you owe for that after you use it. I hope that helps a little bit, Judy, but hopefully she won't need a lawyer to defend herself in any kind of criminal act. There's no way a credit card company is going to charge some elderly woman in a senior citizen's home with a crime. That's just not going to happen. Let's go to Donald. Donald, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Don, what's up?
I got a question. I got a friend in Kentucky. She is in a nursing home, and her boyfriend, they lived together for like 13 years.
Yes.
And her family put her in a nursing home, her son did, and her boyfriend's trying to get her back out. She only spends like 2 days out of them a week with him. If he marries her, can he sign her out of that nursing home? Because she don't want to be there.
That's a tough one. See,
I don't have any idea.
That is and I'm not even sure that's a legal question
and he's going to have to talk to a Kentucky attorney. That's going to be a very state law specific.
And that's a great point. Yeah, really, even if we knew the answer to that for Tennessee, Donald, it would have to apply in Kentucky different. Talk about that. I mean, now, some laws, especially, even criminal laws, from state to state, and it's different than federal court. Federal court's dealing with overriding things that are the same, aren't they, pretty much across the country? Where, constitutional issues are the same in Tennessee as it is in Illinois.
Yeah.
But the laws, how different really are they? When you have to deal with something in Kentucky, you have to have a lawyer there that helps you with the process? For
a state law claim, you do. That's correct. Any lawyer in Tennessee that practices in the state courts of Kentucky has got to be licensed in the state courts to practice law there. Now, in the federal system, we have something called pro hoc vici, which means that if I have a federal lawsuit and I'm here in Tennessee and it's in a federal court in a different state, I can go to that state and hire local counsel, and I can be admitted to practice in that court for that specific case and to handle that case so long as I've got local counsel. The laws from state to state, they do vary quite a bit. I mean, you've got just different areas of the country, different legislatures passing, different laws, sometimes trying to address the same problem. The federal system, you've got all the federal laws coming out of Congress, out of Washington, D.C. Now, the flip side to that coin is the country is divided up into different circuits, and each circuit contains a number of states. and you have different circuits interpreting the same law differently. So you
the judges did interpretation
right,
of it.
yeah,
I
exactly.
understand. So there are differences even under federal law from circuit to circuit or district to district.
Even though you have the same law.
Interesting. All right, listen, we got to take a break. When we come back, we've got more calls. And again, we can do the general ones. Those last two weren't really in the law, but that's fine. You guys want to take a shot at it. But again, you know Andy's specialty, and I know many of you have probably dealt with it. Some form of discrimination in the workplace, workers' comp, issues like that in the workplace. That's what he really knows. In fact, we're going to talk when we come back about a high-profile case he's handling here that we did a story on involving a client who is suing the Davidson County Election Commission. And it's an interesting story because it affects how all of us vote. We'll take a break and be back with more of your calls on that story right after this.